You can see in your bulletin there the title of the message, Partners in Crime. And it sounds scandalous, and that's why I picked it, because it sounds scandalous. It's not really that scandalous, but it just sounds scandalous. I'm going to be talking about marriage today. And that's one of the, topics that I feel most comfortable talking about. I feel like Heather and I have a great marriage, so that's probably why. And I'm just going to start out by saying, if you guys want, this is for everybody, okay? But if you want a God-honoring, mission-driven marriage, or future, if you're single, if you want a God-honoring, mission-driven marriage or life, future, you need to live a God-honoring, mission-driven life today. So, with that being said, are there any married couples out here today? We got a couple. Yeah, I am married. I don't want to be. How many are happily married? Okay, you raise your hands, but a clap. You're happily married. I don't know. Okay, so we got some married couples out here today. Okay, good. Okay, this is going to be fun. All right, so I'm going to do a little Richard Dawson Family Feud kind of thing here. So I'm not going to call anybody up, and I'm not going to come out in the audience, but if I was to ask you, why do you think people get married? Let's say I went and I surveyed 100 people, and the top 6 answers are on the board here. What do you think the answers would be as far as why do you think? And this is just a, kind of a non-scientific, what I think the answers would be. So they're my answers, so it is what it is. But if I were to ask you, why do you think people get married, or why did you get married, maybe I think the number one answer would be companionship. I think that's a very solid answer. Just speaking for myself, I wanted to, 1, I didn't want to be alone. 2, I wanted to spend my life with someone. I wanted someone to love me. So I think that would be, number 1, maybe, okay? Number 2, number 3, 4, 5, whatever I got here. Who knows where they are. But I would say stability would be a good reason. Some people may think or may say, I'm just better when I'm with somebody than when I'm by myself. So therefore, I need that stability. Therefore, I need to be with somebody. Somebody else may say security. I feel more secure when I'm with somebody, be it, an emotional security, a relational, a financial security, whatever it is. For women, you may say, my biological clock is ticking, therefore, I need to have a family. We got to get moving here. There may be a reason why you decide, hey, I'm going to get married. For men, it could be, you want a legacy. Like my great-grandparents have a legacy, and my grandparents have a legacy, and my parents, and I want to continue this legacy. Or maybe you want to start a new legacy. So you kind of are going that way. So I think there's all kinds of good reasons. Some may be better than others. I'll let you decide. And some of you guys might be saying, Chris, I'm not married. I'm only 15, 16, 18, 25, 35. I'm not married yet, okay? How does this apply to me? Well, it goes back to my original statement. If you want to live a God-honoring, mission-driven life or marriage, have that, you need to start today. So that's where we're going with this message, okay? So I'm going to open up, and I know you guys only have a couple scriptures on your bulletin there, and I got a couple other ones that I have added. But first one is Genesis 1:27. It says, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth, subdue it, rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and over every living creature that moves on the ground. So right away we see here in Genesis, okay, that God gave us a responsibility. He gave us something to do. It's not just, live our lives with our hands in our pockets, but we are to do something. Let's jump over to Genesis 2, verse, I think 18? Yeah. verse 18. It says, the Lord God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." Now, we know that God said everything he made was good. So men were good, but we're just not good alone, you know. So we should be looking for that other person to help make us better. And this is where I want to get to today, where I think we can overlook how marriage can really honor God. I want to have a marriage that honors God. I want it to be the best marriage. I don't want just a good marriage. I want a great marriage. So you don't build a life of righteousness on a foundation of folly, of foolishness, of sin. I mean, we can go into the book of Proverbs and look at all the practical ways in which, how we ought to live, okay? And then I don't want marriage to be the end-all, be-all, where, have you guys seen Jerry Maguire? Anybody see Jerry Maguire? Okay, you guys remember Jerry Maguire? I think I like Tom Cruise movies or something, but this is a rom-com. You got Tom Cruise, he's the sports agent, and Cuba Gooding Jr., he's the athlete, he's the receiver for the Arizona Cardinals, and you got Renee Zellweger, the Tom Cruise's woman that he gets in the movie, and then, they're together, and then you know how these rom-coms go, they break up or whatever, there's some kind of struggle, and then the guy wins the girl back. And you guys remember at the end of the movie, what does Tom Cruise say to her? "You complete me." And all the girls went, "Oh, that's so beautiful." And guys are like, "Man, why didn't I think of that?" And I used to think, man, that's such a great line. But the older I got and more deeper I got as a Christian, I thought, I don't want to complete Heather. And I don't want Heather to complete me, because she is not my Savior. We can complement each other, and that's what I want. I want us to complement one another, but not complete each other. If I make her the object where she completes me, when she doesn't complete me, I can just, we're done. You didn't complete me. But if we complement each other, I think that takes the marriage to a different level. It's not just the emotional connection. I want you guys to have a great emotional connection in your marriage, but I also want you to have this spiritual connection. So, and by that I mean it's not just about holding hands and going out to eat and grabbing a coffee and doing this, and that's great, but it's so much more than that when you have a Christian marriage, okay? So I'm talking to Christians today. So if you're here and you're not a Christian and you're just kind of listening or online or whatever, and you're like, okay, I'm talking to Christians today. I want us to have the best, the greatest marriage possible. And realizing that we know as Christians, we are in a battle. That there are forces of evil, darkness that are always going to push against us. We can look at how marriage is under attack and has been under attack for several years. We can look how the family is under attack. We can see how your kids are under attack. Just our future is under attack. And there's this culture is always trying to remove God from everything and replace God with little g, ourself. And that's a very dangerous place to be in a society. I've used this analogy before. When you're on vacation, you go to the beach, you set up camp, you go out in the ocean, you're out there playing, and then you kind of go down, and then you look up, and you're like 2 beaches down from where you were. What happened? You had that slow drift. You didn't realize you were just kind of drifting along. That drift in the ocean, that current just kind of pushed you that way. You didn't even realize it. So we need to be walking around with our eyes open. So Heather and I, we decided that we want to leave a legacy, create a legacy for our kids, that when we die, we are confident that we left our kids and our grandkids a blueprint on how to have a godly life. And it isn't just, hey, open up your Bible and read the Bible. It's living it out in front of them every day. And you're going to go through different seasons. You're going to go through different phases. But in your marriage may morph and change here and there. You know, your mission in your marriage may change a little bit. But ultimately, it should be to honor God. So, one of the most important qualities in a marriage, then, is to have a shared mission together. Not that you have to do everything together, okay? Not that everything in ministry has to be done together, you know? But there should be a common thing that binds you guys together, okay? It has to be bigger than just we love each other. That's great. I want you to love each other. But it's got to be bigger than just we love each other. Marriage isn't just about finding your partner in life. It's about finding your partner in crime or partner in mission together. Because I know a lot of people, and I know that you guys know a lot of people who have found their partner in life, but they're not maybe doing life together per se. Got another verse here, and I don't think I gave it to Heather, but it's Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 9. It says, 2 people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. Likewise, 2 people lying close together can keep each other warm. But how can one be warm alone? A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but 2 can stand back to back and conquer. 3 are even better, for a triple-braided cord is not easily broken. And that's something that Heather and I have instituted at the very beginning of our marriage. We made it not just like God's in the center, but God is part of every part of our marriage. And that's what I want for you guys, for God to be in every part. If you're single, every part of your life. If you're married, every part of your married life together. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that settle for less. And it's not that you have a bad marriage. You may even have a good marriage. But it's not a great marriage. And what I want for you guys is to have this great marriage. Or if you're single, hey, get ready for that married life. You know, if you're younger, you know, get ready for that, you know, future spouse that you're going to have. I want a great marriage, and I want you guys to have a great marriage. So, how can you have a more complete marriage where you can complement one another? Or how can you have a marriage on mission, okay? You can write this one down, okay? This one, it can't just be for casual Christians, okay? You can't just have this casual faith, this casual Christianity where you're just kind of going through the motions, because I think that's one of the great dangers in marriage is kind of just going through the motions. And you wake up one day and it's like, what happened? Where you just slow drift, kind of like that analogy I used earlier. You wake up and you're down here, and it's like, how did I get down here? Maybe you're more Christian in name only, but your lifestyle doesn't really reflect that of being a Christian. You're going to church, but you're not letting Scripture kind of shape your marriage, shape your family, dictate to you how to live a more godly life. You know, you're just kind of, you're not rejecting God outright, let me say it that way, but you're not pursuing Him either, okay? So that's what I mean by you can't be a casual Christian. You got to get in this fight, because it's a fight, you know. How many married people are in here again? Okay, so you guys know it can be a battle, it can be a struggle, okay? And then throw in the enemy and the forces of evil and things that want to come against your marriage. And it's challenging. So, to be honest, if you were honest with yourself, if your marriage doesn't look different from the world, is it? Is it that much different? Are you doing anything different? Or you just kind of, if you were to just step back and look at your life and your marriage and your relationships, does it look any different from how the rest of the world looks? Are you watching the same shows? Filled with the same lust, the same violence, we call that entertainment? Are you spending your money the same way the rest of the world does? You're trying to find that next thing that's going to make you happy, chasing after something that is going to make you happy. It's like food, guys. You have an appetite. When you wake up in the morning, you have an appetite. And then you wake up a little bit later, or you go on through your day, and you have another appetite, don't you? And then a little bit later on that day, you have another appetite. And we're just trying to find things to fill that appetite, to satisfy us, to make us happy. And this is where we need to, as a Christian, be pursuing God, pursuing Jesus. Maybe even raising your kids, if you're parents, and it doesn't look that much different than how the world is raising their kids. It's more about, we want them to go to school. We want them to play some sports, go to college, good grades and everything. But there's never any thought about instilling Jesus or God into their life. Are we that much different? And there's where I think we need to be intentional about doing things like that. Because what's going to happen is that's going to creep into your marriage, and you're going to define your marriage the way the world defines marriage. If it feels good, you're in. You're going to do it, right? But if it doesn't, you may just pack it all in and say, you know what? I'm done. As long as you meet my needs, you make me happy, I'm in. But when you don't, I'm out. So the bottom line here is that we're all going to pursue something in life. Everyone's going to give their life to something. So as a Christian, because I'm talking to Christians here, start with Jesus, start with God. We should give our life to Him first and foremost. And then if you're married, why not to your spouse, to your marriage? Let that be the emphasis, okay? Let that help shape our future. Let that be a legacy where future generations are going to look and say, there's something different about them. Wow, what'd they do? Oh, they had Jesus in their life. It wasn't that we just acted a certain way or said certain things or whatever, Now, there's a couple in the Bible, okay? And we probably could overlook them. They're mentioned a few times, and they weren't pastors. They weren't kings, prophets, queen, anything like that. They were tent makers. They had regular jobs. They worked in a factory, or they were construction workers, okay? They were tent makers. Their name was Priscilla and Aquila, okay? And they did life together. And I know culture back then was different than what it is today as far as going to an 8-to-5 job or a 9-to-5 job. But they did life together. They didn't just make tents together. They did ministry together. So if we look at Acts chapter 18, verses 1 to 3 here, it says, Paul left Athens and went to Corinth. There he met a Jew named Aquila, a native of Pontus, who had recently come from Italy with his wife Priscilla, because Claudius had ordered all Jews to leave Rome. Paul went to see them, and because he was a tent maker, as they were, he stayed and worked with them. So, we can see from this text here that they hooked up with Paul, okay? And we know who Paul was. He was instrumental in the early church, planting the church, going from town to town. So we know the importance of Paul. And here we see Priscilla and Aquila having a unified mission to spread the gospel, to spread the good news of Jesus to the surrounding communities. So professionally, let me ask you guys this, okay? Since they had this unified mission, could you work with Jen all day, Dirk?
She's sitting right here.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, she's sitting right there. I can't answer that. So, like, how many of us could work with our spouse all day long? I mean, I had this when I was preparing, and Heather and I mean, we don't, but we work a lot more close together now than we did, before we had the gym. And I was just thinking in my stupid thoughts that I have, like, can you imagine going home and, after you work together all day and saying, how was your day at work? It was good, but man, there was this girl at work that was driving me nuts, Like, I don't think that would go over too well, But here we have Priscilla and Aquila, who they were doing life together, okay? So this was very impressive. Their marriage wasn't just about happily ever after. It wasn't just about the next vacation that they were going to take. It wasn't just about the kids and the sports and everything that they were going to do. If you're married, do you guys have a mission that you share? I'll let you ponder that for a minute. And I'll give you some ideas here at the end, okay? But there's another time in Romans where Paul mentions Priscilla and Aquila, okay? Towards the end there, chapter 16, Romans 16, verse 3. He says, give my greetings to Priscilla and Aquila, my co-workers in the ministry of Christ Jesus. In fact, they once risked their lives for me. I'm thankful to them, and so are all the Gentile churches. Also give my greetings to the church that meets in their home. So we can see that they were co-workers with Paul, which we already knew, but they also risked their lives with Paul. I mean, they were so committed that they risked their lives together. They had church in their home, so maybe they got a small group where they're meeting, So we just see that they're there, they're supporting each other spiritually, they're meeting with other Christians regularly, They're leading a small group in their home. They're doing married life together with other Christians. And I think this is so important because we can see and we know individuals and couples that if you're doing life, this is my hypothesis and my theory, but I think I'm pretty accurate on it. If you're doing life alone, things get overly exaggerated, right? I would say. Because you could have a problem that is, this big here. This is a problem. But because you are by yourself 24/7, what happens? You start rehearsing this thing in your mind, and it becomes bigger and bigger, and then it's your whole entire world, and that's the only thing you can think and see. God didn't call us to live that way. Jesus didn't call us to live that way. As married couples, I don't want us to live that way because that's not going to help us have the greatest marriage possible. When you have a common mission and you're not inward focused, you don't have time to worry about all those other little things in life. Not that some of those things aren't important. Some of those things are just they're going to work out on their own. Those minutia things, they're just going to work out on their own. But since we sit there and we get so focused on these things, it's like they just become bigger and bigger. Here's my sports analogy, okay? So, and I can't use the Browns because they don't ever win, but let's use the Buckeyes, Let's use the Buckeyes here. They won the championship a couple years ago, right? So, I can't imagine, okay, going into a season, you have one goal, right? You want to win. You define your whole season, we're going to win. We want to win a championship. That's the goal. In marriage, you need to define your goal, okay? If the Ohio State Buckeyes get in the locker room and they're just sitting in a big circle, holding hands, looking at each other, I just don't feel important. I'm not getting enough touches. I'm not getting the ball enough. Like, who cares? Boo-hoo. What is the mission? The mission is to win a championship. In marriage, what is the mission? You need to define what the mission is. That's why I think it's really important to have, because you don't want to just sit around and talk about your feelings all the time. You want to go out and you need to do something. You need to help others. You need to get your focus off yourself. Find 2, 3, 4, 5 other couples to meet with. I'm going to pick on the Millers, McPeaks, Milgrams here, okay? Your last name has to start with an M to be in their group, okay? If it's N, like Nadolski, you're out. I'm sorry, you can't be in that group, okay? So, but these guys, they do life together. They pray for one another. They encourage each other. They help each other out. That's what I'm talking about, doing life together like that. They have a common goal. Maybe, like Heather and I, we started a small group with other couples. Is it going to be short-term or long-term? I don't know. But we're gonna ride this out, and it's a couple down kind of thing where we can deposit some truths into other couples. Not that we have it all figured out and we know the answers to everything, because we don't. But share what we learned. And I'm sure we can learn from other couples as well. So some of you guys are sitting here right now and you're thinking, yeah, we need a mission. I want a mission. And I'm going to give you guys some ideas here, okay? Let's look at Priscilla and Aquila one more time, though, before I do that. See, because at one point they had a conversation, or maybe not, maybe it just happened, what they wanted their future to look like. Do you mind if I share, Greg, about you guys? You're little, no, okay, I'll put you on the spot, sorry. So, he came to me a few months ago, 2 months ago maybe, and he said him and Sharon, they got away. They like to get away once a year, kind of recalibrate, reset everything, pray, go to Amish country, wherever they go, pray together, get alone with God, listen to his voice. What's he telling us? And he told me, God was telling us, to leave a legacy. So maybe that's what you guys need to do. You need to get away a little bit. You need to recalibrate, recenter, turn your phones off, just, declutter, get everything out. And then maybe you can hear from God. And you'll stop being a casual Christian who's just kind of drifting along. Maybe you'll find that unified mission that God has for you and not let the world define for you what that mission is. So Priscilla and Aquila, one more time. They had this unity of a mission, and it was to disciple others. And we can see in Acts 18:26, I think. Did I start? 18:26. I'm going to start with 24. I don't think it's in there. Meanwhile, a Jew named Apollos, a native of Alexandria, came to Ephesus. He was a learned man with a thorough knowledge of the Scriptures. He had been instructed in the way of the Lord, and he spoke with great fervor and taught about Jesus accurately, though he knew only the baptism of John. He began to speak boldly in the synagogue. When Priscilla and Aquila heard him, they invited him to their home and explained to him the way of God more adequately. When Apollos wanted to go to Achaia, the brothers encouraged him and wrote to the disciples there to welcome him. On arriving, he was a great help to those who by grace had believed, for he vigorously refuted the Jews in public debate, proving from the Scriptures that Jesus was the Christ. So I read all that to say, look, Priscilla and Aquila, here they are. They want to disciple other people, and that's what they did. And they saw something in Apollos, however you say his name. This guy needs some work, but we're doing ministry together, and let's disciple him. And that's what they did. They invited him into the home, and they did some things. So I think some of you guys, you just need to figure out what that shared mission is. See, there are two things that will galvanize a marriage more than anything, okay? I want you to have God in the middle. But there's a couple other things, okay? If you have a common enemy, that's going to galvanize your marriage. So, parents, when somebody comes against your kid, it's, you guys rear up together. You have a common enemy. Or if you have a common mission, okay? I think that will galvanize your marriage. So write this down here. What do you both love? What do you both love? What do you both hate? And then what are you going to do about it? I've seen couples who aren't Christians have really good marriages because they have a common enemy. They have a common mission. And maybe it's because they're philanthropic. Maybe it's sports with the kids. Maybe it's a parenting style, But they don't have a great marriage. They have a good marriage, but it's not great. And the reason it's not great is because Jesus is not in that marriage. Like I said earlier, things will morph in your marriage and change from season to season. Heather and I are grandparents now, 5-year-old, 2-year-old. So I know I look really young, don't I? That's great. And it's great to be young grandparents, too, because, you just have so much more you can do with them. But our mission, a little bit, has become to help raise our grandkids to know who Jesus is. I think that's a good mission. We don't want them to grow up and believe the lies of the enemy, to be crushed by the devil. You know what I mean? We want to tell them the truth. So we kind of design our lives around spending time with them that we can deposit these truths into them. It's not always convenient. Sometimes it's not always fun. But you know what? We have a mission, and we're going to stick to that mission. It's not about, when they get in school, about sports. We don't want it to be about sports, although, hey, I'm all for sports. Or popularity, even the education part. Yeah, that's all good. We want that stuff. But more than anything, we want them to know Jesus. We want them to love Jesus. We want them to serve Jesus. So here's some ideas for you guys, okay? Maybe you went through a tough time financially, and as a couple, or as an individual. And your mission now is to help other couples who are struggling financially. Not that you're going to open up your wallet and say, here you go, but to mentor them, to give them instruction, to give them guidance, to give them some wisdom. Or maybe you're never able to have kids, and your heart breaks for other couples that can't have kids. So now you want to, your mission is to pour into these other couples, to love on them. Maybe you had some infidelity in your marriage, and it was either you or her or him or however it worked out. And you have a broken heart for other couples that are dealing with that because you got through it, and your marriage is thriving now. That could be a mission for you to get in and help other people. Here's the thing. You don't have to work for Life Point Church. You don't have to work for any church. You can be a minister right where you are, at work, in the church here, in your neighborhood. You don't have to go overseas to be a missionary. It's right here. It's around us. So, what do you love as a couple? What do you love? What do you hate? And then what are you going to do about it? I know this works because Heather and I have been married for 20 years, and this is how we live our life. I've seen other couples, the same thing. They have great marriages because Jesus is the center of their marriage. And I want you guys to go from just a good marriage to a great marriage, to be partners in crime together, so to speak, to find something where you guys can be missional together. So what about you guys? I mean, you know there's more for your marriage than maybe where you're at for some of you guys right now. You know there's more, because there is. God, he doesn't just want you to be partners in life, but partners in crime, partners in ministry together. So you need to stop being that casual Christian. You need to define those values, whatever they are. What do you love? What do you hate? And then you need to seek Jesus. Because marriage was never meant just to be about love. I mean, I love Heather. I know she loves me. But it's so much more than just that. We were meant to be partners in crime, in ministry together, okay?